Let's talk a little bit about the role of a Chief Technology Officer, or CTO, and it's different from a CIO. A CIO is a management position. They own the budget for the information technology department, and they make decisions about what programs will be moved forward, as well as whether or not the particular activities of the organization are aligned with the strategy of the company. They're very much, they own pretty much all the technology. But in recent years, we've seen a lot of chief information officers who are not technical. Maybe they're good program managers, or they were from other parts of the business. I've seen a CIO who was an attorney. I've seen a CIO who was an accountant. I've seen CIOs who they were really good program managers and could organize a group of people pretty well, but they weren't real leaders, and often they were responsible for kind of budgetary aspects and for very important jobs, making sure that the right people, we used to say getting the right people on the bus, that the right people are in the right positions within their IT organization. And one of those positions really needs to be the owner of technical decisions. The owner of technical decisions. And that is the Chief Technology Officer. And it's hubris for many of these CIOs to assume that they are technical enough to be the CTO as well. In many companies, they are. The CIO is the CTO. They own all the technical decisions as well as the managerial and the political and all the aspect of it. But in some other companies, especially those where the CIO is not someone who has spent their life in technology, it's better for them to separate these two. So what does a CTO now own? Well, they typically don't own budget. And that's actually one of the most important aspects of your CTO's role, is while they can make, certainly in any of the senior leaders of an IT organization can and should participate in the planning activities that set the budget and set the budget priorities. The CTO largely does not own, nor do they deliver against budgetary requirements other than timelines. There are some budgetary aspects that may very well depend upon timelines. And the CTO should be accountable for, especially for decisions that they're making that are future looking. But the four things that we should expect from a CTO: vision, leadership, decision-making, and positional authority, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the big ones, the ones that everyone really recognizes and needs to understand, is vision. Number one, the organization should provide a strategy. And some organizations really don't, but most organizations largely do. They have an approach where they believe that their organization is delivering value to their stakeholders and to the market. And those are different. Some companies will only deliver value to their stakeholders. Others will, make a point of delivering value to their customers as well. They typically do better. But that vision of how they plan to provide value has to be interpreted. Somebody has to set up a vision of how technology can support it. Somebody has to stand up and say, great, this is how the company's moving in that direction. Here's the way technology should do it. And in a lot of organizations, the CIO owns that vision, but may struggle to create it. And this is where the CTO comes in. The CTO will create and merge and form that vision and then provide it either directly to the CXO team or to the CIO, who will then deliver it. So the vision of how technology can support the needs of the organization, that's number one. Number two, leadership. So people will follow those who they trust, who have credibility, who are clear, persistent, and have a certain personal magnetism. At the end of the day, you won't want to follow someone that you don't like. So your leadership skills, and this is a skill, building trust, building credibility, being clear, not flip-flopping, making decisions with rationale that people can follow. This creates leadership. And you as a leader as a CTO can set a tone, can set an approach that others are expected to follow. For example, using metrics and actual measures to talk about particular technical decisions, as opposed to, I feel like this will work better. And that's leadership. Another very important portion is decision making. And let's face it, technologists argue. They're massively capable of arguing. They'll argue with business stakeholders. They will argue with their product managers, their relationship managers with the business. They'll argue with each other. Somebody has to be the place where the buck stops. And that's where your chief technology officer comes in. When two different teams or two different highly credible people are arguing about an approach, a technology, a platform, a piece of idea, somebody has to be the one who owns the business perspective and who makes the decision and then keeps to it, doesn't give up. And otherwise, the same decisions can be routinely gone over and over and over. And if you ever have a situation where your IT team keeps relitigating their decisions, that's because their CTO is either not present or is not being consistent in their decision making. Positional authority, this is the fourth one, and this is with any managerial role. Organizations typically are hierarchical. And a lot of folks in the company, it's kind of human nature, to not want to take responsibility for a decision or an action unless somebody higher up the food chain agrees with them and aligns with them, and therefore would take the fault if that turns out to be a bad decision. So having positional authority matters. You can't just anoint a product manager and say, you have authority to make decisions about customer relationship management systems, and this other person has authority to make decisions about e-commerce, because those two overlap. So you need somebody who's above them both who can say, this is the way we're going. So really your CTO needs to provide all four of those capabilities. The key question to ask is, do you need a full-time employee to do it? A lot of organizations simply can't afford a CTO. And so they'll either rely upon some other member of their technical staff or a business person or the CIO. And that person may or may not be capable of pulling it off. And that's why sometimes the right answer is a fractional CTO. And I would love it if you think this is something you want to talk about, call me up at CTO Resources and let's have a conversation.